Good afternoon, everyone. Those that are joining by video as well as those here. I ask as we begin that you please join me for a moment of silence, followed by a pledge of allegiance to the flag. Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
All right, can we have roll call, please?
Tom Eggers.
Here.
Brad Hitt.
Here.
Dave Hamill.
Here.
Sean Brewster.
Here.
Wayne Garhona.
Here. All right. Moving on then for approval of the agenda. One small change. We are going to continue item G under the consent agenda. No, excuse me, not G.
Jay.
J, yes.
We're not going to let Jay retire?
Item J. So, and speaking while we're on, can we have approval for that then?
So moved.
Support?
Roll call, please.
Eggers.
Aye.
Hamill.
Aye.
Hitt.
Aye.
Garhona.
Aye.
Brewster.
Aye.
All right. There is no one here from the public that I can see for public comments. Todd, is there anyone joining us that would have public comments via the video Zoom meeting?
I have 2813, which I assume is Kurt. And then I have Kristen Van Ingen, which I'm assuming is for the poultry request.
Okay. I'm assuming Kristen will join us then at that point when we move to that point of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Your comment would be now.
it would be.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not a public hearing item.
Okay. Kristen, are you with? There she is. Hi, Kristen. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Good. So am I talking to, okay, yes, very good. Kristen, this is the mom, not the daughter, correct?
Well, she's supposed to be. Oh, she's here too.
I see her face on my screen. So,
All right.
whoever is speaking, the mic is yours. Please go ahead.
I'm like, what do we all need to do?
Well, just if you would just kind of reiterate what your request is, what your plans are for the chickens.
Okay. What are you gonna do with your chicken? How many chickens do you want?
I want 3
3 what?
hens.
3 hens that we currently have on our farm. So they were born this year, so they're young yet. They haven't even started laying.
They're very quiet.
Yeah, they're very quiet. We don't even hear them at all. And we would like to put them in the backyard here. We've got a corner that's so shaded we can't even get grass to grow. And it's right behind the neighbor's sheds as well. And so it all butts up to the backside of sheds is what it does. And right next to my house. And that's where we would like to put it. We've had one neighbor on the way back side of my fence that we don't even know who they are.
Says no.
Yeah, they said no, but I have no idea who they are either. So I don't know what their reasoning is, but the 3 neighbors that actually would have the property that would be right where the chickens are, they're all okay with it. So,
Okay.
yeah, they would be outside basically during the summer, and they'd have to come inside during the winter. So they would become garage chickens in the winter, because otherwise it gets too cold.
And they'll die.
But, yeah, the whole moving to town thing she's not super thrilled with, because she's been raising chickens since she was 3. And, yeah, by coming to town, we're like, well, you can't have them anymore. She's like, why?
So, Bailey, I have a question for you. Can you hear me, Bailey?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Tell me a little bit. What do you do to take care of these chickens? What are your chores as far as?
You feed them and then you water them.
Okay. Do they lay eggs?
You do with the poop.
And we scoop poop for fertilizing for the garden.
Okay. Good.
And what do you do with the eggs?
And we give the eggs to our neighbors.
Okay.
And friends.
You don't like eggs then?
We will take some of the eggs too.
Oh, okay.
But we don't go through them fast enough.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Very good. All right. We will. Do you have anything else you'd like to tell us at this point?
No? Okay.
All right. We will take that up for discussion a little later on in our agenda, excuse me. Thank you for your comments, and we will be in touch. You are welcome to listen to the discussion that takes place later, or else we will be in touch with what happens. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to assume that that's all of the public comments at this time. Is that correct, Todd? Am I correct in my assumption?
I don't have anybody else on the line, so yes.
Very good. All right, then let's move on to the consent agenda. And as noted, item J is continued till our next meeting, so that will not be part of this approval. And I would accept a motion to approve that at this time.
So moved.
muted.
Okay, we have.
Tom says so moved.
I will support.
unmuted.
Okay, I'll take one of those as support. All right. Any discussion items specific to any of that? If not, may I have a roll call, please?
Brewster.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
And just one comment. We are one item there that we are accepting the retirement notice of Jay Skemper from the Planning and Zoning Commission. Jay wasn't sure exactly how many years, but it's been at least 20, if not more. So we thank him for his service. That's been a long time on the board. And there are 2 seats open on that board for those that are interested. Please indicate that you are interested by sending a letter of interest, an email, whatever the case may be, and we will consider your appointment at that time. So, moving on. We are ready to move on to point number 5 then, I think, which is the discussion regarding Community Services Center room rentals. We have Sam's comments there. Sam, do you want to say anything at this time?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on June 17, the council approved unlocking the west doors to free flow foot traffic. Continue to encourage the use of the utility box. We have been screening people as they come into the clerk's office. It's been a bit of an inconvenience for both visitors and the clerk's office, but it's gone fairly well. There's really 2 options to consider. One is to continue to limit the use of the community center except for city-sponsored events such as Shop with a Cop, and we've got Brian Willing, Officer Willing, his retirement coming up, those types of things, and encourage rental of the pavilion. They can accommodate social distancing a lot better, or allow for room rentals again, effective the expiration of the governor's June 25 proclamation was set to expire on July 25, and the rest of my explanation speaks for itself.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions at this time from any of the council members?
With option 2, I'm assuming that we would utilize the same accommodations for social distancing as the pavilion would.
Go ahead, Sam.
Its current proclamation, Tom, is ensure, and it's very difficult to ensure social distancing. And so the governor's proclamation that we have now still has the word ensure in it.
Sure.
We would keep it as it is. Just it
Okay.
closed. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Anyone else? To rent the facility.
No, not at this time.
Okay.
You know, the biggest one was graduation, and I was wrong. We only turned one away at that time.
Okay.
So, Wes, some of our normal ones that come on a regular basis are just curious when they'll be able to come again.
Like the weekly or monthly meetings and
Yes.
stuff like that? Okay.
And for those weekly or monthly meetings, are the facilities as such that they could host with the stipulation of social distancing? Or do we not have that, and that's why we are waiting until after the 25th? I mean, Kiwanis, you probably don't have room to spread.
I don't know how many there are for one.
Right? Honest, you probably could.
Could you?
And I think that group would probably be, and I'm part of that group, and I think we probably could.
What are they doing currently?
That
What are-
been since
oh.
March.
Okay.
They also haven't requested to reschedule either. They understand the situation.
Well, and as I understand it, you could have up to 10 at a table, but the tables have to be 6 foot apart. That's workable.
Yeah.
Another question is, would we adopt the same cleaning protocol that the pavilion is using as well, as far as disinfecting and that between events?
Right? That's a great question. Our cleaning protocol would be what it is now. We wouldn't provide any extra cleaning.
Is that what the
Unless we were
pavilion does today?
requested to.
Does at this, do they do it?
The pavilion staff takes care of that.
Yes.
Yes.
But that's after every event, basically, correct? Yeah.
Correct.
So if Kiwanis were to meet with their normal Monday meeting, it would just get being done after a wedding reception, whatever the case may be.
And that's where your risk is, right? Because our cleaning schedule is Tuesday afternoon, Thursday afternoons. Cleaners are built at the village. So it's one of the reasons why we would be relying closely on the governor's proclamation, but we wouldn't. We did bring in a couple of people to help with the deep clean, and did a great job. Chanel Mattis and Rachel Klein-Hessling helped with that. We aren't in a position to be able to do that very often.
So are you looking for a motion now or a consensus, sense of direction? What is it you're wanting from us today?
Either. There's really no pressure to decide today because we aren't being pressured to do rentals yet. But certainly could provide guidance that, depending on what the governor's proclamation does on July 25, that we could open.
Right. Because we won't meet again before that. So, I mean, I would say use that as kind of our.
Yeah, I'd say go ahead with it, subject to the guidelines that are in place.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
A consensus is all that's necessary.
I'm looking around. Would you agree with that also, Tom? I'm seeing everybody else's head nod.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay. So that is by consensus. Then we'll see what happens between now and July 25, and if nothing changes, we can move forward with opening them back up. All right, then let's move on to item number 6. We've had our request from Bailey Van Ingen regarding the poultry at 1014 Garfield Avenue. We have a number of options for us to consider. In order to get the discussion open, I'd like to have a motion that somebody's ready to make a motion somewhere along the lines anyway. If not, we can just have.
I guess I would move that we proceed with this and allow it subject to some, like the guidelines we did on the last one, with a year limit, and deal with it again when that comes up.
And understanding that it subject to any sort of complaint or anything like that, that this could be revisited and
Sure. Well, of course.
I'd support that.
Kristen, when are you still with us? Kristen Benningen, are you still listening in?
She is. She's just on mute,
Okay.
or was on mute.
If we could get her unmuted somehow, Todd.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Okay.
I feel that
For some reason, I lost the ability to control her mute and unmute. But Kristen, you should be able to unmute yourself if you're on the computer or on the phone by hitting *6.
while we're waiting, I took a couple concerned citizens today that live in that neighborhood that are against this. So I thought I'd throw that out. 2 different people came in and talked to me this today about it.
I'm guessing not the ones that signed the letters.
I don't know who signed the letters. I guess I didn't read those in the packet.
Well, the 3 that were in the packet they had no problem with it, as if I remember correctly.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
And she made some comment. That's what I was going to ask her. She made some comment. They said no.
That there was one of the adjoining landowners that did not either did not want the chickens or did not want to comment on it.
When I read through the agenda, I was under the impression it was, no, I don't want to write a letter.
Right.
When she said today, then it sounded more like, no, I don't want the chicken. They said no to having the chickens. So that's why I was hoping to get Kristen in on this yet. But
So Brad, what was the concerns that they levied to you?
They just didn't want them in the neighborhood. That was their main thing. They didn't want them in the neighborhood, and it's just going to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to more and more.
Kristen, are you unmuted at this point?
Mayor, Kristen should.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
There you go.
In the letters that you sent, at the end it says one neighbor would not write a letter, and that is the neighbor furthest away from where we would like to put the chickens. Was it just that they didn't want to write a letter, or they were not in favor of having the chickens?
That's the thing. I'm not sure, because Bailey is the one who went and talked to all the neighbors.
Oh, wonderful.
And she
Good for
had
you,
asked
Bailey.
them to write a letter, and she comes back and she said they wouldn't write a letter. So I don't know if it's that they weren't in favor of chickens or they just weren't going to write a letter.
Okay.
So that's where I have no clue who these neighbors are. I said she's the one who wants to have the chickens, so I sent her to do the work. Because that's part of her responsibility, the way I look at it.
Very good. A good learning experience, it sounds like. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Sam, have you received any complaints?
I have not.
I had a question about the timing of when the coop will be built and installed and the chickens would arrive.
Timing-wise, it would probably be sooner rather than later. My husband hopes to have all of our stuff off of our acreage by Saturday.
Oh.
The coop is actually in a box in my garage right now. It just hasn't been put together.
Okay, so it's imminent then. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sam.
Just, I stand corrected. There was one person who came in at the beginning of this meeting. We had a conversation. He was concerned that the city council shouldn't be involved in this, and we should just simply allow it. And I tried to explain to him that one set of codes says no way, you can't do this, and the other set of code, the other set of code says maybe, and that maybe is to be determined by the city council. To add to that, I do think that at some point we need to establish a better process for this, where either we have a permitting process where somebody comes in, we have an established notification process, and we grant a permit, or have a board of adjustment action and a special use permit. There are a couple of options to consider. So Northwest Iowa Planning and Development is assisting us with a couple of other zoning amendments. And Darren, I've been working with him, and he's working on a couple of drafts for us to consider, and I'd bring that to the Planning Commission at some point, along with a couple of other items.
Okay.
There's a fair amount of staff time that goes into this one request. You know, if you look, I'm not complaining, I'm just pointing out that there's a fair amount of staff time, and there isn't an established process for seeking support from the neighbors. I asked Bailey if she would do that. She did a great job of getting 3 of the 4 neighbors to support it. And, I think with the information we have, we're fine with moving forward with the same approval that was offered to the young gentleman last months ago, with a 1-year approval.
Okay. Any other comments?
I just think this is going to lead from chickens to something else to something else. I think we've just opened up the chicken coop.
The Pandora's coop?
You're going to have chickens everywhere. And then it's going to be roosters. And then you're going to have the police going and enforcing chickens in town. So, like I said, I think we've opened up the chicken coop, and they're going to run wild.
Okay.
I think it's a good experience for the kids, but there's a difference between living in the town and living in the country.
I guess the part that it does give me pause, it would be the lot size in comparison to the previous request. They're a little bit more isolated and more space. So is it that these chickens would openly graze on the yard?
No,
Absolutely not.
no, they're in a coop.
They would be in the coop full-time, pretty much, as I understand it. Is that correct?
The dog would kill them otherwise. We have a hunting bird dog.
Okay.
Guess that answers that.
If anyone has a comment yet, I'd like you to make that. Otherwise, I'm going to ask for the motion to be read again, and then call for the vote. We had a motion on the floor, as I understand it. Could you read that again, please, just so we all know we're clear on what we're voting on?
The motion was to approve the request for poultry at 1014 Garfield, subject to the last one with a 1-year limit, and revisit it if there are complaints.
Yes.
If I could ask for 2 friendly amendments to that motion, it doesn't need a new motion, but just to have it included that the expectation is the cage would be 5 feet from the property line, and we'd issue I'd issue a permit for the cage, so I have it documented.
Okay.
That'd be $25.
Those that made in support of that motion, are you fine with that addition to the?
I'm fine.
Okay. All right. Then let's,
I'm fine with support.
okay. Then let's have roll call, please.
Kent.
No.
Carmona.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Brewster.
Aye.
Himmel.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Let's move on then. Todd, are you ready to give us an update on the NCC and Thormond lift station projects?
Yeah, you bet. So you'll see in your packet a one-page narrative from DGR that describes the 2 projects on hand. And the second page is the preliminary cost estimate for those 2 projects. In a nutshell, these projects or these lift stations were built in the 70s. They were done with a dry well construction, meaning to access pumps and whatever, we have to send guys down ladders 20 to 30 feet into the ground. New construction would be a wet well construction where we would have controls above ground in buildings, and we would have submersible pumps on slide rails that could be pulled with lifts, and therefore we lose the need to access the underground confined spaces, those type things. It's what we've done with all of our lift stations as we've done them. The reason these projects are in front of you right now is they were both on the 5-year CIP for construction at a later date, but the wastewater treatment plant has funds left over from the construction of that. That's for 2 reasons. We bonded prior to bidding. The bids came in under engineer's estimate, and the second reason would be we had funds in there for expenditure to remove soils in case we had bad soil. We fortunately did not have bad soil and didn't need to expend those funds. So there's about $1.4 million left in that loan or in that note. So yeah, we think this is good use of the money. We think it fits. Thorman Lift Station as well is currently it's in the right of way, so it's right behind the curb and between the sidewalk and the curb. We are proposing to purchase some property. A vacant lot next to that, and actually construct the lift station and storage building in there, and then make it, blend in with the aesthetics of the residential neighborhood that it sits in. That's a broad view of the projects. I guess I'll take questions if you have them.
All right, thank you, Todd. Are there any questions at this time?
So Todd, if we were to approve the use of this monies for this project, what would happen with those monies?
I'll let Sam answer that, but I believe you would have to use them for another wastewater-related project, or I suppose you could put them back to the bond. Sam, is that true?
Theoretically, you could, but there was both TIF and a revenue bond, so you would have to figure out how to do that. But it was contemplated, I understand from the beginning, that if the bids came in lower, you could do these important projects which need to be done in the next few years anyway.
I guess if we have the extra money.
Yes, Tom, one reason that staff feels it's a good move to move on these projects now is if we do them 3 to 5 years later as proposed, they're going to cost more money at that time. We have the proceeds available today. The rates have been adjusted accordingly, and I think it'll only get more expensive in the future.
Yeah, I didn't really ask the question as being in opposing of the project as much as just trying to understand what the options were if we weren't moving forward with that project. So.
No, that's fair.
Any other questions?
If we have the money from the wastewater plant and we need to do these projects, let's get them done.
Yeah.
Cross them off the list and move on. And we kind of got lucky on these because we had extra money over. We don't have to go look for more money to do the projects. So I would be in favor of moving on.
You'd hate to construct this nice new facility and have the piece of equipment that's just in front of it fail.
Yeah.
So are you willing to make that as a motion?
I would make that motion to approve these 2 projects with the use of the leftover TIF, our wastewater funds.
Support that.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Hamel.
Aye.
Brewster.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
And that motion carries. All right. Moving on, Sam, we're ready for your report if you have anything else.
Thank you, Mayor. The first part of my report speaks for itself. Second part of my report also speaks for itself, but it's more complicated, so I'll just go through that. And that's, you might wonder why this is coming up now regarding the former rec pool site. And the reason it is coming up is because I had set a reminder in my calendar to check again in July as to the status. One of the key principals in White City Holdings, which was the contract holder, had passed away in January. So I decided to allow the probate process to move forward for a while, and then I checked in with both the user of the property, Sheldon Power, John Van Gorp, and I also checked with Terry and Arlene Budin. And as I understand it, the estate does not have significant assets in which to resolve the issue. So none of these options are great. They all have a downside. The easiest option, of course, is to do nothing. That's the easiest option in the short term, but that will cause us more pain in the long term, because this issue will probably not be resolved without our intervention. There are two additional options that you could consider that I would need to vet more fully with our city attorney, and I didn't want to take a lot of his time on this, and so I put these options together as best as I could. But there's two additional ones. One is to potentially pursue the contract holder, the LLC, and the deed holder. I don't know what we could get out of that, but that is a possibility. We could at least explore that. The other would be explore a TIF rebate for the right project, where, for example, if someone would be willing to come in and write out a check for $58,000, and then have the property and then be paid back a rebate over the next 10 years to help recoup some of that cost, and then that would reduce the city's out-of-pocket costs. So those are a couple of other options to consider.
Have you and Kurt visited about that option? Is that a viable option in Kurt's mind?
I just mentioned
Yes.
it is. It depends on the right project and a minimum assessment, what you put there.
So in terms of the right project, is Sheldon Power involved in this conversation? Have they indicated that they would like to use this property for anything more than equipment storage?
They have, and one of the options is to accept sealed proposals. I intentionally have not gone into negotiations. I've just been more conversation with Buddens and with John Van Gorp. One of the risks of bringing forward a proposal for consideration and then subjecting it to a public hearing process is somebody else to come in to the microphone and offer a slightly better proposal, and then that puts you in a pickle. So it might be better to accept sealed proposals. Wouldn't be like bidding out widgets, but sealed proposals, and then I do a matrix on those and bring those forward.
Do we know what the culpability is for the Budens, being that they were selling this on contract and that contract was not fulfilled?
Can you elaborate on culpability?
Or at least what stake do they have here, being that it is their property, right? As in the eyes of the law? Oh man, he's trying 4 times to come up with the right word. I must have hit a good one.
When the Budens sold it on contract and recorded that contract in the county courthouse, something called equitable conversion happened. And that made the LLC purchaser the owner of almost all of the interests involved in that real estate. So the LLC owns the real estate subject to the remaining property right or rights of the Budens. The Budens have a contract, and under normal Iowa law, if the contract purchaser doesn't perform, they have the right, but are not necessarily required to forfeit the contract and take it back, or to enforce the contract through other means. But I'm not aware, from my practice and experience, of where the contract seller is compelled to enforce those rights that they have to get it back. So if you think of real estate as a bunch of different interests, what the LLC has is the real estate interest. It's what you would mortgage. It's a property, real estate property right. What the Budens have is the in personam, the personal property right, subject to what they've sold to the purchaser. So that's longer than you need to know. But the short answer would be, I'm not aware of anything that would compel them to say, just because you didn't do what you're supposed to do, contract purchaser, now I have to take it back. There's a process to do that, but they don't necessarily have to.
So then, in a situation where there is a lien against the property or assessments to the property, that still goes to the LLC.
It goes to the real estate interest. It attaches to the real estate. If the Budens and the LLC agreed to give this all to Wayne, and Wayne accepted that deed, your real estate comes with that attached to it.
Mm-hmm. Regardless of whether or not that was subject to a fulfilled contract.
It's just something that's attached to that real estate. And keep in mind, that special assessment wasn't against that property when they sold the contract. It's not like they acted in bad faith and said, we're trying to move this liability over.
Right.
They sold it on contract. They financed the purchase of the wrecked pole. And then there was this intervening event, which results in a burned down building, no one wanting to clean it up. The city cleans it up, foots the bill, and the costs get assessed back to the property. Not to people, to property.
So, in the situation Sam was describing, taking sealed bids, the winning bidder then is responsible for that?
Well, let's go back to our recent experience of you're buying it as is, where is, etc. Okay? The current property disposal policy of the city has been, if we have something and you buy it, you're buying it as it comes to you, with the warts, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so following that policy, if someone would purchase it, the city's position, at least under the current way we approach things, is it's your work.
Mm-hmm.
I think Sam's research shows that there's a way to stick with the analogy, to reduce the size of the wart. Is that correct? The two big problems are back taxes and the special assessment in terms of making this a marketable property. But those are public record. Those are not hard to figure out what they are.
As in our previous situation.
Yeah, that's a very unique situation.
Yes.
So then with that, we wouldn't have any problem with clear title.
I have no idea what other chain of title issues may be there. For instance, if the LLC was subject to a judge, a third party had sued them and got a judgment against the LLC, that would be something that's against that property.
Another wart.
Yeah, which you can find through a title search.
Question for Micah. If the city's interest was only to make sure that we regain the assessment that we had, or the investment that we put in to clean it up, is there a way that we can garnish any income that comes into that property? or take priority on that income to go against that lien of that property before, without having to have a sale involved at all?
I think what you're asking is, to the extent there's a lien on the property, does that give us a right to income that may be generated by the property?
Yeah, assuming that Sheldon Implement is paying a monthly rent to use that land from whoever the owner is, can we garnish that income to go against that assessment?
That's a unique question. It's not one I've explored. My initial reaction, without further research, would be this. The income belongs to an individual. They're using the ground to produce income, but that you have to separate the person or the entity from the land. And it's the land. It's the land that's subject to the lien and the special assessment. It's not Sheldon Power or any other tenant or occupant. It's the land itself. That special assessment attaches to that. And I'm not aware of a mechanism to, as you would describe it, garnish the rental income.
Well, first of all, I couldn't let Wayne be the only one to use probably the wrong word, but I made an attempt as well. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that our true interest is getting our money back that we paid to clean up the thing. And if we don't have to pay any money to get that back, but we can assure a way, an avenue to get it back, I don't know if the city's that much interested in owning and managing a property or cleaning up a mess that's already there related to that property. So if there is an opportunity for us to get our assessment back another way other than what's being proposed as far as purchasing or relieving the asset from the property, I would be in favor of moving that direction.
And I think that question was posed in a different way to Sam earlier today, and now that it's come up twice, we can do a little more investigation. But currently, the city's rights are protected through the special assessment process.
Everybody will take ownership of that property if we forgive them the special assessment. Then we're out. We cleaned up a mess for somebody. I think we need to benefit somehow from that property, either in redevelopment or something. Not just giving it to somebody else to have a free and clear title on our dime.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we have to have some kind of a...
Right, and I don't think the county would be so easy to give up their back taxes either.
No.
Well, if I may, Councilman Barahona raises an interesting point. The county has an interest, and the taxing entities have an interest in getting those taxes back, right? They also have an interest in properties being viable and generating future tax.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
This property, like others, is kind of at an impasse. There is a question of if and to what extent the county legally could participate in some forgiveness, which is different than the question of if and to what extent they would be willing to do it. But those two components make this a difficult property to currently move. The amount of the back taxes, the amount of the special assessment.
So Mike is over there stealing my thunder, but I'm kind of in the same boat where that property's doing nobody good right now sitting there. If we leave that assessment on, that property's going to sit there for 25 years. If we take that assessment off and we can get somebody there to pay those back taxes and then start paying current taxes, then we're getting something.
Well, the problem is that the assessment's only $15,000 of $58,000. So you still have, according to the numbers here, $43,317 of tax due to the county. if I'm reading those numbers right, Sam.
You're close. The reason it's so complicated is because 2 of the 10 years of the assessment are baked into the tax certificate.
Oh.
Okay, so kind of got to drill down into it. The city could cancel the remaining 8 years of assessment, which is approximately $22,500. City could just cancel that and then let the free market forces work, or keep the special assessment in place, which is your option number 2, to guard the city's interest. Take proposals. Before we open a period to take proposals, I would need to work with Micah on establishing some parameters, but bring that back to the council and take proposals, and then if you don't like the proposals, you can reject all of them. You haven't lost out on anything except you know more.
If we can get a free clear deed title to the property, then it's another story about forgiving the assessment. But if we can't get ownership of it, I'm not in it for giving the assessments off. The city needs to take control of that property clear and free before I let the assessments go.
So
I guess to speak to that, is it possible that if the value of the assessment plus penalties reaches the market value of the land, can we take over the title of the land for that assessment as payback for that assessment? So our assessment goes up to $35,000. The land's worth $35,000 on the market. Can we take title of that land for the payment of the assessment?
You'd still have to take care of the back taxes, though.
Yeah, but you might be able to find a buyer that can handle that at that point. That's my thought.
Well.
And we could control a little bit more about what goes in there and how we want to incentivize that. But we don't have to then pay extra money up front. The assessment would take care of that. Would erode that.
Well, I think before we go too far down that rabbit hole, I think we probably should get a title opinion to make sure that we don't do all this work for a big surprise for the buyer once it comes time to actually make a deal.
Wouldn't argue that. I'm just looking at trying to keep our costs as low as possible when we've already invested almost $30,000 in the property already.
So I guess I worry that under the circumstances with which that property turned into a nuisance, that there might be more debt out there or more judgments against that property, especially since they were banking on there being an insurance payout when the arson occurred.
It'd be worth investigating.
Yeah, I understand that, but we kind of took care of the nuisance by cleaning it up.
Right, but I'm talking about the fact that they wanted that. I'm not saying, I don't know their motives, but there could be a financial reason why they wanted to get rid of the property, i.e. being upside down on perhaps other financial obligations that have since
You're
attached.
talking the owner.
Yes, yep.
You're talking the owner, right, Wayne?
Correct.
How much would a title search like that run approximately?
So in our county, the basic title search for any judgments, mortgages, or other liens, it's in the neighborhood of $100 to $150.
With the sunset on this property? Oh,
There wasn't much.
okay. So we've done one. We don't have to do another one then.
It's now in probate, so maybe we need to.
For $150, I would
Yeah.
do
I
it.
think it would be money
Cheap
well
insurance
spent.
there.
I
Yeah.
hate to find another surprise down the road. It puts us back to where we started. So,
Because otherwise, we got to keep paying Micah and turn into a whole thing.
I might.
yeah, go ahead.
What I'm hearing out of this discussion is that we're in the process basically of whittling this down to considering options 2 and options 4. Options 2 and options 4. But in order to really consider that, we need to have another lien or title search. So we go ahead and proceed with a lien or title search, and then we'll flesh out 2 and 4 and bring it back to you when we're ready.
Sounds
So we
reasonable.
don't really need to take any action as such, so you have enough to go on for.
No, I just wanted to take your temperature on it.
Yep. So you've got enough to go on.
Tom, were you able to hear what I just said?
I did, and
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this in large scope before we have to get down to a decision. So,
All right, we'll let you move forward with that and take it up at another meeting down the road. Any other comments from your report, Sam?
No, sir.
Mike, is there anything else you want to add?
No, thank you.
Ange, anything from you? Scott, do you have anything?
Can we talk about Shop with a Cop real quick? We're still looking for volunteers.
Yeah, if anybody wants to volunteer, call Jessica. She's looking for volunteers.
Jessica with
Love Inc.
Love Acre, okay?
Tuesday and Wednesday.
I don't know how many that's going to carry over into video, but the request from Chief Birch is that anybody that's interested yet in participating in Shop with a Cop, please contact Jessica at Love Inc. Soon, because that's coming right.
Volunteering, not participating.
Volunteering.
We may have families contacting her.
Oh, gotcha.
Participating.
Okay, volunteering. Thank you for the clarification.
Chief, if you could come up to the mic here a second.
No, we're going to grill you.
Just wondering if you could kind of brief us a little bit on the staffing situation of the police department. I know we're in a bit of flux right now.
Right. So Officer Walinga is retiring. I think August 1st was his final day. We held interviews last Friday with 2 candidates from the previous list. We decided to pass on those 2 candidates, and we're going to start a new list. So we're going to start the process over.
So what, as we try and basically we're trying to sift through sand right here. I feel like with trying to bolster these numbers. I wanted to bring you up here just to make it a little bit more official, but for those that might be looking at pursuing this as a career path, what would you say? How would you describe the candidate that we're looking for?
Right now, I would say it's got to be someone that's pretty thick-skinned.
Yeah.
It's a difficult job right now. I'm hoping we can find the right candidate. We're sure advertising a lot, so I'm thinking that's going to help us out.
Yeah, I did notice that too, so I just wanted to allow this this venue as well. Are we? I know you'd like to have a tenured officer apply and come on, but just looking at all contingencies here, if someone does not have a background, what's the feeling like as far as if they were to look at getting interested or being interested, getting started in the process? What would you think there?
So I'm hoping there's some, people either getting out of the military or college that are looking into the career. With the academy dates, the way they're set up right now, the earliest we could get someone into an academy would be January anyways.
Okay.
So if we find someone without experience, we would try to do as much field training here as we could before they went to the academy anyways. That way we would have a feel too if they would work out or not too before we spent the money on an academy. Sure. It would be great if we could find someone that's certified. Whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how that goes, but I just wanted to get just a more for the people at home, just kind of give a heads up of what's going on here. So that'll be my comments to say, hey, spread the word. We're hiring. We got a good chief, and I'm an okay board member, so why not?
Okay.
I do have one, if you were done,
Yeah,
Wayne.
I'm done.
While you're up here, question, how were the many issues with fireworks this year?
Overall, not too bad. We had a few. I ended up working Friday and Saturday myself. We had a few that went after hours, but as long as you told them to stop, they were fine. So it actually went pretty well.
Okay. I was just curious with seemed like a large amount of fireworks going off, how it was out there.
We had
I don't know, catching you off
someone
guard.
that tried to left their fireworks in the fire pit, and of course that stunk up. So we had them put that out. No major issues though.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Thanks, Chief. Todd, I didn't catch you earlier. Is there anything else you would like to comment on at this time?
Yeah, just two things. To follow up on that lift station project, those two lift station projects, we'll complete the engineering now, and we'll get them off to the DNR for their review. We're likely looking at a January, February type bid letting for those. So then those projects will come back to you guys for final approval in the form of bids at that point. And then the other thing I wanted to share is, unfortunately, this spring when I went to drain down the steam boiler here for the community building and get it opened up for its summer internal inspection, noticed that it had a leak in it. Had an attempted repair which failed, so we are looking at having to replace the steam boiler here for the community building. $50,750 later, we'll have ourselves a new boiler. So it's an expensive replacement. It's one that we did not have budgeted. So my thoughts are, and I've spoken briefly with Angie and Sam about this, but my thoughts are we have some excess funds from the roofing of this building. You'll recall we budgeted $125,000 to put a new roof on this building, the police garage, and some of the other flat roofs around here. That dollar amount was based upon a budgetary estimate I got from a contractor. When I actually took that out to bids, the winning bid actually ended up to be $68,570. So that leaves a balance of $56,430. So it'll cover the boiler plus a few thousand left over. So that's my thoughts, and I'd like to move forward with getting a boiler in the building before winter hits.
Yep.
That worked out. Good fortune.
You want to wear your parka?
Yeah.
I suppose more sweaters is probably out of the question.
I'm going to have to watch your estimates in the future, Todd.
You never want your estimates to be a little better, though, Todd.
I know. But
So I'm guessing that part of, it's wear and tear, but the hard water probably didn't do us any favors. Are we getting any closer to shallower wells yet?
Our shallow wells are running. They're running at the maximum capacity that we dare push them. It's a little dry right now. That's not helping them any. We did recently try some new rehabilitation on some of our shallow wells, and actually myself and the water department guys are very happy with the results. We took some wells that were only producing 20 to 30 gallons a minute and have them up over 100 gallons a minute now. And at 20 to 30, I would have shut them off, other than I didn't want to make our water any harder than what we needed it. So if that rehab holds in, that'll be good. Lewis and Clark is still, on track for late 2023 or 2024. To your comment, though, that boiler, that steam boiler that failed, was installed in 1987. So it doesn't owe us a lot. It did have hard water going to it for the majority of its life. Not so long ago, I switched it over to soft water, and that's probably why the walls failed, because it probably ate the scale off. So giving it what it really wanted its whole life probably is one of the reasons why it ultimately failed, but it was headed in the direction anyway.
Sounds like a romance novel. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Todd.
Yeah.
That's all you have, I'm assuming?
I'm going to quit.
Okay, very good.
It's enough.
Then, Tom, I'm going to start with you. Any comments you have at this time?
Not today, thank you. I look forward to being with you all next meeting, though.
All right, us too. Councilman to my left, anything from you guys? To my right? Nope. The only comment I have is comeback cash, $250,000 was completely sold. Thank you to all of you in the community who participated. Just a reminder that that does need to be spent by the end of the month, so don't leave it laying on the counter too long. With that, we are adjourned. Or we have a call for a motion to adjourn, excuse me. You made that motion?
I did.
And we have support. Roll call, please.
Eggers.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
Brewster.
Aye.
Kent.
Aye.
Farahona.
Aye. Now we are adjourned.
Take care.
You bet. See you, Tom.